All right, so session is being recorded for later reference. As a reminder, things you put in the chat box do not show up on the recording, but if you come off of mute, you are liable to be on the recording. All right, so last week we talked about this class, why you're taking it, and some general high-level things. Let's start digging down a little bit now of how is all of this going to apply in your professional life. For the most part, we're here at South Mountain because you have a career goal, and getting your associate's degree is the first step to that. It's also okay if you don't have a career goal yet, but you're just taking that first step of, I'm going to go to college, lay the groundwork, and as I'm taking classes, I'm going to find what I want to get into. So, staying in the technology lane right now. As you're going through this class, over the next 14 weeks, you start thinking, wow, I really like this programming stuff. I know we have a couple already in this class who know that you want to be in cybersecurity, right? IT support, help desk, programmers, computer engineers. I'm a cloud engineer, database administrator. There is so many careers directly in that technology field. Thank you in the chat box. I see it, right? So, start thinking about what is your future career. And as you're going through this class, right up here in the top, this should be your mindset of what I'm learning this week, how am I going to use that in my professional life? Or if I do volunteer work, how can I apply it there? So just keep in mind that pretty much everything you do in this class is going to be applicable either in future classes or when you enter the workforce. If you know what your future career is, think about what that entails from a technology perspective, right? What applications do you need to know? Do you need to know a certain programming language? Do you need to know how to use different devices? And start getting the work to know those things before you get started. So one part for this week, we're going to be learning how to use PowerPoint, but also looking at it through the lens of your future career and future technology advances, right? So what do you need to prepare yourself to start that career? And we're going to wrap all of that up into something called an e-portfolio, which is essentially a resume done in PowerPoint. So you're going to tell me about you, your background, your future career, do a little bit of research into what is the average salary for that career and what skills do you need for that career. And that's going to help you assess how you get there. So, if you know exactly what you want to do, perfect. Take that, do a little bit of research on it, and have that be your assignment for this week. If you don't know exactly what it is you want to do professionally going forward, that's okay. You have two choices there. You can either pick something just for the purposes of this assignment, or reach out to me and I'll help you get something, one, for the purposes of this assignment, and also maybe start thinking about what it is you want to do. So for this week, just keep that in mind. And it does not have to be a technology career. If you want to be a nurse, that is first, thank you. And that is absolutely a valid thing for this assignment because at this point we have electronic charts, right? So you do need to know how to use the technology to fill out your patient charts. So thinking about that, technology in a typical workspace, 9 to 5 standard desk job. What are you going to have? You're going to have a computer, maybe a laptop, sometimes a desk phone, sometimes a smartphone. Not a lot, right? It's just 3 things. Let's think about if you have a smartphone, how many things are actually inside that phone? I remember growing up, I would carry we talked about those giant Nokia brick cell phones. The only thing that could do was make calls. So I had to carry a phone, I had to carry a separate camera. I actually had a separate PDA, and I had usually a Game Boy with me. So I had 4 huge hulking devices that I carried around. Now all of them fit right here in this thing. So that kind of shows the rapid change of technology, even in, for me, the last 10, 15 years, how things changed. And then just thinking, going back a little bit, 25 years ago, typical workspace did not have a computer, did not have a smartphone. So if you were entering professional life 25 years ago, you didn't know how to use any of those things. You had to learn them along the way. Now we all know those things are there, so let's learn how to use them before we get started, get that leg up, right? So, I'm going to look at a couple of case studies here. Ooh, fun. Give me 1 second. Helps if I know my own password. There we go. Now I'm in. Okay, so I'm going to look through these 2 case studies. You're lucky in the classroom, I would be calling on people and making people read them out. But today, I will read them out, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So, case study 1. In 1975, got my first job in a bakery. Every baker had an egg timer and a stopwatch to keep an eye on the bread. Went to college from 80 to 84, got a business degree with a minor in finance. After college, started working for a real estate company. Job was to sell raw land to developers and find land at auctions and foreclosures. Main piece of technology was a calculator, which took big honking D batteries. Drove with maps, called from rest stop phones, and used the post office all the time. On the road 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week, to hand deliver contracts and get those signatures. Had to look through newspapers to find foreclosures, and there was a small little paper that was usually out of date by the time I got to read it about the land auctions. Spent way more time in courthouses looking up purchases than I even want to think about. Today, I own that company I used to work for. Every employee has a laptop which gets updated every 5 years, replaced. They have smartphones with GPS, and they're typically on the road 5 days a month to give presentations to prospective buyers. There's a software program that gives up-to-the-minute status on foreclosed land, raw land, and developed land, as well as the sales history. Can do auctions on the phone or on the internet for the raw land. And I can say I am much, much more productive today than I was 25 years ago, and have time at home with the family. By learning the technologies and the terminologies, I have become a wealthy person. Could never have accomplished what I have without understanding technology and using it to my advantage. Case study 2. First job out of the military in '93 was as a telephone computer salesman. Had a big pile of computer magazines the company advertised in, and a dumb terminal that simply gave the prices of the products and a phone. That was it. Buyers would call in, look up the ad, take the credit card over the phone. Automatic credit card processing was a big deal back then. Didn't know much about technology, but I could see the writing on the wall. I was laid off in 2000 when the company migrated to the internet. They needed less than 10% of the sales force once internet sales took over for phone sales. I went to work for a smaller computer sales company for a while and got laid off there too. The internet put them out of business. Went to community college, learned about operating and repairing computers, and got a help desk job in 2003. 2010, I was laid off when my job was outsourced. And after that, I worked as a computer technician at a bank before they outsourced in 2003. Since then, I have been working as a car salesman, getting up there towards retirement age, and I am concerned for my future. Knowing what I know now and wish that I had known then, I would have gotten a bachelor's degree, maybe a master's degree. I consider myself a technical person, but really never got a chance to move up. So, give me a brief summary, kind of one sentence on case study one, either in the chat box or somebody come off of mute. You know, kind of what did we see from the baker?
Realize how awful and how like inconvenient it is to have so much like technology that he just made it easier for other people. So obviously the tech evolved from the 70s till whenever he owned the company basically. So he made it easier for his employees.
Right, kind of leveraging that technology and mastering it to make things better for himself, and then eventually once he became the owner, for everybody else working, right?
Yeah.
And what about number two, the military vet? How did technology interact with his career? Same thing there, right? There was the ever-changing technology throughout the career. However, case study two, that person did not stay on top of it. Technology kind of passed them by, where we all know how awesome the internet is and how convenient it is to go in and just buy something online without having to call somebody. But if your job was to be the guy who picks up the phone and that no longer exists, then technology is working against you. And they didn't put the work in to move with the technology. Technology kind of passed them by. So in the chat box, just give me a number one or a number two. Who would you rather be? I'm seeing a strong consensus there, right? Number one, we all want to be that person who, exactly as Jen said it, right? Combine that technology with your experience and strive. Technology is going to change. I think we all know it, right? We've all seen over the past 10 years how quickly things change. Stay on top of it and have it help you. Don't let it pass you by. All right, so talked about that e-portfolio, and we're going to do it using presentation software because you're going to be creating a presentation about yourself. There's many choices. We're going to use Microsoft PowerPoint in this class. Everything we do in this class is going to be on the Microsoft Office suite, but know that there are alternatives. You can use Google Slides, Apple Keynote. There's a few different products out there to do your presentations. Most of what we learn is going to be applicable to all of those different ones, but we are specifically going to focus on PowerPoint just to keep things, one, standardized for this class, and two, PowerPoint is the standard in most workplaces where you go. They're going to be using the Microsoft Office suite. So it's good for us to have those skills. And I think I kind of answered the question there, right? Of why use presentation software at all? Think about, maybe we have some experience here. If you're in a business environment trying to sell something or teach something, or even for me teaching this class, nobody gave me these PowerPoints that I use every week. I use the PowerPoints to remind myself what I need to tell all of you on a weekly basis. So the PowerPoints for me are a tool to help me present. The PowerPoint is not intended to be something that you can read by yourself and be 100% good to go. Yes, you can go back and reference it, but these PowerPoints are built essentially as notes to me to help me remember what I need to get across and to keep me on task, because I have a goldfish brain. And if I were just to write down a giant list of, okay, for the next 2 hours, I need to talk about these things, knowing myself, there's no way I would ever get through that entire list. I would go way off on a tangent on something, and then time would be out. All right, so these are all built for being in the classroom. So it's going to be a little bit different flow today. If you have a setup where you have 2 screens and you can follow along, awesome. If you can't, that's okay. Just kind of watch the videos and think about when you're in PowerPoint, how you would be doing all of this. As a reminder, everything that is in these PowerPoints is on Canvas. And I will also be posting this whole session up on YouTube again, where you can go and review later. So, if you can follow along now, awesome. If you can't follow along, that's okay. We have ways to go back and review. And then also, if you do not have a way, you don't have a Windows computer or your MacBook doesn't have PowerPoint installed, today is the day to let me know. And there's a couple ways that I can get that software in your hands. So again, one, for the purposes of class today, follow along. If you have a second screen, awesome. If you don't worry about it. And for the assignments this week, if you do not have access to PowerPoint, talk to me today and I'll make sure you're good to go.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
So this first one is just an overview of getting started with PowerPoint. Let me know in the chat box if it's hard to see or you can't hear it. I want to make sure the message is getting across.
PowerPoint is an easy-to-use program that lets you design your own presentations. You can use it to create slideshows, presentations for work, multimedia projects, and just about anything else you can imagine. When you open PowerPoint, there's a good chance you'll be taken to the Start screen first. From here, you can access recent presentations or create something new, either from scratch or from one of the built-in themes. In this example, we'll click Blank Presentation. Next, you might want to take a minute to explore the interface and make sure you know your way around. Why don't we begin with the ribbon, which is the collection of tools and features at the top of the screen. The ribbon is divided into tabs like Design, Insert, and Home, so you can easily find what you're looking for. There are also commands on each tab that have been organized into groups. For example, if you look closely at the font group, you'll find it has everything you need to work with text, including options like bold, italics, font color, and size. Some groups even have an arrow in the bottom right corner that you could click to view even more commands. If you ever feel like the ribbon is taking up too much space, you can always hide or minimize it. All you have to do is click the arrow in the upper right corner, then choose the option you want. Also in the upper right corner is a place where you can access your Microsoft account. Here you can update your photo, manage your account settings, or switch to a different account altogether. For help working with PowerPoint, take a look at the Tell Me feature. It works just like a regular search bar, allowing you to quickly find the right tool or command. All you have to do is enter what you want, and you'll be given a list of options. You can use the command directly from the menu without having to find it on the ribbon. You can even customize your copy of PowerPoint to make certain commands more convenient. Take the Quick Access toolbar in the upper left corner. This area gives you access to frequently used commands like save and undo, no matter where you are in the ribbon. To add more commands, just click the tiny arrow next to the toolbar, then choose the ones you want. I'm going to add new and also quick print because I use both of these commands pretty frequently. Now let's take a look at the presentation itself. In this example, I've opened a business profile that I'm working on. You can navigate between different slides using the pane on the left, while the space in the center is where you'll actually create and edit your presentation. At the top and to the left of the center pane, you should see two small rulers. These make it easier to adjust your presentation and align the objects on your slide. To show or hide the rulers, go to the View tab, then check or uncheck the box depending on your preferences. You can also turn on grid lines and guides for even more control over your slide layout. In the bottom right corner, you'll find a few more tools that let you change the way your presentation is displayed. Here's what the tools look like up close. To zoom in or out, click and drag the zoom control. The number next to the slider will tell you what the zoom percentage is. You can also switch between different slide views using these four buttons. Normal is selected by default. This mode is great for everyday tasks like creating and editing slides. Slide Sorter displays smaller versions of the slides in your presentation. Reading View hides all the editing tools to make your slides easier to review. And finally, Play Slideshow will play your slides as an actual presentation. Last but not least, I'd like to give you a quick tour of the Backstage view. You can get there by clicking the File tab. Just look for it on the far left of the ribbon. Here you can access all kinds of information related to your current presentation and more. This includes commands like New, Open, Save, and Print. All you have to do is click an item in the left pane, and it'll open on the right. This makes it easy to find what you're looking for and review your options all in one place. That covers the basics of PowerPoint. Now that you're comfortable with the interface, including the Backstage view, the ribbon, and the work area, you're ready to start your first presentation.
All right, so that was a quick little overview. And now I put the announcement out just before class saying, hey, let's make sure we have this zip file downloaded. So that should have came to you as an email, but also in Canvas, when you're in the CIS 105 classroom, you can go click on announcements and you'll see the new one from today with PowerPoint challenges. Click right here to download the zip file. And then now I have it over here. And I'm gonna unzip it, right? This is from last week. Come here and right click, extract all. It's gonna say where it's going. I'll let it go where it wants to by default. And now I have a new folder right there. And inside of there, I have my PowerPoint challenges. So the way this class works when we're doing these technical days is that we'll do a quick little 3-5 minute video like that, and then immediately do a quick practice of that same thing. These practices or challenges are not graded. You don't have to turn them in. They're a way to make sure that you are learning better than just listening to me talk or watching a video, and to practice the skills that you'll need for whatever the assignment is for the week. So again, I very much encourage you to do these challenges and work along with me, but you do not have to submit them. They are not graded. They are a tool to help you learn, because I have found, especially with technology, the absolute best way to learn is hands-on. So with that, we're in our PowerPoint challenges folder now, and we're going to start with number 1. If you are wanting to follow along and you can't get that zip file, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to pop open number 1, and I'm going to step through this first challenge right here. So, step 1 here is to actually open up PowerPoint and create a blank presentation. So what I'm going to do there is bring up the one that I'm working on and say, come here on the top left, click on File, and then under New, there is Blank Presentation. So I'm going to click on that, and it opens up one that says click to add title, click to add subtitle, and it's plain. First thing I want to do is on the drop down on the quick access toolbar, I'm going to change the tabs, and I'm sorry, it's hard for me because my screen share is blocking. So let me get this out of the way. So we had all of our view stuff. And now we're going to actually just skip ahead a little bit, and we're going to draw some shapes. So I don't know where the shapes are, so I'm going to use this quick access, the search bar, the tell me bar. I'm going to type in shapes, and there it is right there for me. Now we can pick whatever we want, but in this case, I'm going to go with a sun, because we get quite enough sun here in Arizona, right? So now you can see my mouse changed to a crosshairs. If I click and hold it, the more I drag, and everywhere I drag it, it resizes that shape. And then once it's there, I can move it around. I can change the color. Very simple things like that. On the View tab, if I want the ruler, I can just come right here on the very top, click on View, and then my toolbar changes. Hit the checkbox on ruler, and it snaps in this grid. That can help me if I know that I want the sun to be an exact size. I can use the grid on the ruler to make it exactly the size that I want. And then if I want to, when I'm done, hit that checkbox again. It's a very easy thing to toggle on and off. And then also we can see right here, it's zoomed in to 110%. I want it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to hit that plus button one time, and now it's zoomed in to 120%. There we go. That was our first little foray into PowerPoint. Now we're going to go one step deeper. So now, if you have two screens and you're able to, you can open up the number one PowerPoint and follow along with this video. And then we'll do a quick demo together.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
I've been working with a local animal rescue, and I think a PowerPoint presentation is just what we need to showcase some information about their adoptable pets. But how do we get from this to a presentation that looks like this? The key is understanding how slides, layouts, and placeholders work. Let's take a look at placeholders first. When you start with a new slide, it'll usually contain one or more placeholders. Placeholders can contain text, pictures, charts, and all kinds of different objects. To find out what you can do with a placeholder, just hover over the icons here, or simply click and start typing to add text. The arrangement of these placeholders is controlled by the slide layout. This layout happens to include one placeholder for the title and two more for content. You can choose your layout when you first insert a slide, or you can change it later depending on the type of content you're working with. To insert a new slide, look for the New Slide command on the Home tab. You can use the top half to add a slide in the same layout as the one that's currently selected, or use the bottom half to open the menu and choose the exact layout you want. You can even insert a blank slide and add your own text boxes and objects later. Changing the current layout is just as easy. All you have to do is click the Layout command and make a new selection from the menu. This time we're going to choose the section header layout. At this point, instead of inserting more placeholder slides, I'd like to try copying and pasting some of the slides I've already created. This can really save you time when the slides you need are so similar to the ones you already have. Just select the slide you want to copy, then click the Copy command on the Home tab, or press Ctrl-C on your keyboard. Next, click in between or below the slide where you want the copy to appear, then go back to the ribbon and click Paste. Alternatively, you could press Ctrl-V on your keyboard. And you can paste as many copies as you need. Now that I have these copies to use as a sort of template, I no longer need those two content slides that we started with. So I'm going to delete each slide by selecting it and then pressing backspace or delete on my keyboard. I'm also going to move this section header so it appears a little later in the presentation. To do this, click and hold the thumbnail, then just drag and drop it into place. Now we're going to take a closer look at the slide itself, along with some ways that you can customize it. The important thing to remember is that nothing is set in stone here. You can always adjust your layout and change the look of your slides any way you want. To delete a placeholder, for example, all you have to do is select it, then press backspace or delete on your keyboard. Placeholders can also be moved using the drag and drop method, and resized using any of the sizing handles here. And let's just add some text here before we continue. Of course, if you need to add an additional text box to your slide, there's a way to do that too. This can come in handy when you're working with a blank slide or with a presentation that's already been highly customized. Just go to the Insert tab, select the Text Box command. Now you can click and drag to add a text box anywhere you want. You'll want to be careful not to change too much though, especially depending on your level of design experience. If you stray too far from the built-in layouts, it can be difficult to get your presentation looking consistent. Sometimes it may be better to try a different slide layout instead. In other words, one that already has the content arranged the way you want. Or you could choose a different theme using the options on the Design tab. Here's how they work. All you have to do is hover over the thumbnails for a preview. As you can see, each theme uses a slightly different layout, so you can easily try out different designs and change the look of your slides without moving or deleting any placeholders. I think I'm going to go with this one. Yeah, that looks really good. There are still a couple more features on the Design tab that'll let you customize your slides. For example, over here on the right, you can change or format your current slide background. You can also adjust the size and dimensions of your presentation if you're not using a widescreen monitor. Okay, now you know how to work with slides, placeholders, and layouts, including a few simple tricks for changing your presentation's design.
All right. So back here in the folder, and now we're going to work with number 1. So I have it here, and we're going to change the theme. That is here on the Design tab. Click on the one arrow with a little line on top. That's more. And it's going to open up all of this. And as you see, as I'm hovering over them, it shows me a preview of what it's going to look like. Let's go with something a little bright today. This one is called Quotable. So I click on that, and you see it automatically applies that theme to the whole presentation. Nice way to get things going. Click one button, and it changes everything up for you. Next instruction is for us to go and delete slide number 7. Numbers are right here on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To delete it, when I have it selected on my keyboard, I'm going to just press the delete key, and boom, now it's gone. Now I want a new slide, but specifically with the title and content layout. I want that all the way at the very end. So I'm going to click there, come back to the Home tab up here on the top, and then on New Slide, I'm going to click on this little arrow, and it gives me all of the options. And the one I want right now is title and content. And it makes that for me. It has the placeholder up here for the title and a second placeholder down here for the content. And then I want a text box with today's date. So to do that, I could use this one that already exists, but instead I'm going to click on it, delete it. I'm going to come up here to the Insert tab and put a new text box in. So when I come to Insert, it gives me all of these different options of things that I could be putting in. But in this case, I want the text box. And again, it changes the shape of my mouse. Now I can draw it where I want it. And then inside here, I'm going to put today's date, September 19, 2020. And then right now, this is all widescreen, right? We can actually change that by going to the Design tab. And then all the way over here on the right side, it says slide size. So we have two choices by default. Widescreen, which is going to be like most of our TVs now, right? That flat screen, nice wide TV. But think about if maybe you're doing your presentation in an office building or a classroom that doesn't have all of the latest and greatest things. If you're doing a widescreen presentation on a screen that isn't a widescreen, you're going to get those black bars on the top and bottom, right? You might remember that when you maybe had an older TV and started watching DVDs on it, the movie would start and you get those black bars on the top and bottom. Same thing would happen here. Instead, you can change the slide size to standard, and then it gives you two choices, right, to deal with those bars. Do you want to cut things off from the side, or do you want to squash it down a little bit to ensure the fit? In this case, I want to ensure the fit. And there we go. You can see all my slides changed now, that they are that size of an old TV, not a nice new flat screen. So if you were working on this after class and your PowerPoint now looks something like this, awesome job. Again, same process, quick little video, follow along with number 2 if you can, and then we'll do a demo together on number 2.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
In PowerPoint, themes give you a quick and easy way to change the design of your presentation. They control your primary color palette, basic fonts, slide layout, and other important elements. In this example, we're already using the default theme, which includes simple text on a plain white background. If we simply switch to a different theme, we can change the overall look of the presentation instantly. To get started, go to the Design tab, then mouse over the options in the Themes gallery for a preview. As you can see, the background and the theme elements I've used are changing, including the fonts, the colors, even the arrangement of the slide. You can also click the arrow in the bottom right corner to see all of the themes at once. Let's see. I think this one looks nice and simple. To apply a theme, all you have to do is click the thumbnail, and the change will take effect immediately. Now every slide has been given a fresh new look, including the picture slide here. Another interesting thing about themes is the fact that each one uses its own set of slide layouts. These layouts control the way your content is arranged, so the effect can be pretty dramatic. If we go back to the gallery, for example, and switch to a different theme, you can see how easy it is to completely change the look of your presentation. Why don't we go with this one? You can even try a different version of your current theme using the variants on the right. Just mouse over the options for a preview. I think this feature is really neat because it lets you change your color scheme and fonts without giving up the overall look of the design. Keep in mind, trying out different themes like this will only work if you take advantage of what they have to offer. That means sticking to the built-in slide layouts and using theme elements whenever possible. Let's take a look at what happens if I change my title text to a non-theme color, for instance. We'll go with the dark red here at the bottom of the menu. I'm also going to change this to a non-theme font. At this point, if we go back to the Design tab and choose a different theme, you'll see that the text is going to keep the formatting I applied no matter what, even if it doesn't work well with the design. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't use non-theme elements in your presentation. It's just good to know how they work so you can use them to your advantage. If you don't like the way your changes have turned out, all you have to do is go to the Home tab, click the Reset command, and PowerPoint will reset your current slide to the default. Themes are a great option for creating consistent, professional-looking presentations, even if you don't have much experience as a designer. They're easy to use and can be changed at any time, so don't be afraid to experiment.
All right. So we saw a little bit of themes on the first one, but the second one is just to drive it home a little bit and see what happens if you change something outside of the theme. So I am in practice number 2 now, and I am going to come to design, and in this time I am being told to specifically apply the gallery theme. There's no names on these. How do I know which one is which? Oh, when I mouse over it, the name pops up. So when I'm over this one, I see the name gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now I'm set. And then I'm not too sold on these colors. Maybe I want something a little bit more modern. So I'm going to use a variant, which is this one right here. And now I get this nice slate kind of look. And then remember, we saw that thing of if you change the color outside of the theme, when you run through themes again, that change you made is going to stay and might not be the best thing to happen. So just keep in mind that the themes are really, really useful, but make sure you're using them in the right way. So that way, if you decide to change your theme up later, you don't have to do a whole bunch of manual work to dig out of a hole you accidentally created for yourself. So, nice, quick, easy practice there. If you're following along, should be looking something like this. And congratulations. Now we're going to talk about transitions. You may have seen my transitions are very plain, right? It just flashes from one to the next. But maybe you've seen in the past where stuff comes bouncing in, or it does like a little explosion effect. Here is how you actually go ahead and do that.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Have you ever seen a presentation that had special effects between each slide? If so, you've probably seen transitions in action. A transition can be as simple as fading from one slide to the next, or it can be a lot more flashy, like this animation of a bird. You can create all kinds of effects using the options on the Transitions tab. Start by selecting one of your slides, then click the arrow here to view all of your choices at once. Transitions are divided into 3 categories depending on the type of effect they use. The first category is subtle, followed by exciting, where you'll find more complex animation.
Whoa. Sorry, folks, had a bit of a hiccup there.
And finally, there's dynamic content, which will affect only the content on your slides. This might include text and images, for example, but not necessarily the background. Generally speaking, we wouldn't recommend using too many transitions from the exciting category. Sure, they look a lot more interesting than the subtle or dynamic ones, but adding too many can make your presentation look unprofessional and, frankly, a little silly. Used in moderation, however, they can add a nice touch between important slides. Let's change this transition back to a subtle option. How about push? To play a transition again, all you have to do is click the preview command on the ribbon, or the tiny star that appears next to the slide. If you change your mind, you can easily remove the transition by going back to the menu, and choosing None in the top left corner. I do like this transition, so I'm going to leave it applied. I would like to play with the timing though, and some of the other options over here on the right. For example, you can quickly customize the look of a transition by customizing its effects. Click the Effect Options command and choose the one you want from the menu. These options will vary depending on how the transition works, but in this example we'll select From Left, and now the slide appears from the left side instead of the bottom. The duration field lets you decide how long the transition will take. So if we change the length from 1 second to a half second, or 0.5 in this case, it'll cut the time in half and the transition will happen a lot faster. You can even add a sound to a transition using the drop-down menu here. Just click the one you want, and you'll hear what it sounds like the next time you play through your presentation. Again, we recommend a more subtle approach here. Adding a sound between every slide could easily become overwhelming or even annoying for your audience when presenting the slideshow. Like complicated transitions, sounds are really best used in moderation. I'd also like to show you the options under Advanced Slide. Here you can set your slides to advance automatically without having to click your mouse. This is primarily used for presentations that are going to be left unattended. For example, in the background at a special event or at a trade show booth or kiosk. To set the current slide to advance automatically, uncheck the box next to On Mouse Click, then check the box next to After. In the After field, type the amount of time you want the slide to be displayed. In this example, we'll set it to advance automatically after 1 minute and 15 seconds. At this point, you can select another slide and repeat the process until all of your slides have the transitions you want. Or you can use the Apply to All command if you want your presentation to be completely uniform. This will take all the settings you see here, including the timings and the transition effects, and apply them to every slide in the presentation. Let's go back to the previous slide and see how this transition looks in full presentation view. Okay, great. I think I'll apply the same effect to some of my other slides later on. The best way to learn about transitions is just to practice, so try using some with your own presentations.
Okay. Practice here in a second. 2 things to hone in on there. The transitions are fun, they look cool, but keep in mind what your audience is and what you're trying to accomplish when you're using them. Remember that PowerPoint is a tool to help your presentation. It shouldn't be the focus of your presentation. So if you have too many transitions going on or they're too exciting, it's going to take away from the message that you're trying to deliver. With that said, in this class, go crazy. Anytime you have a PowerPoint assignment from me, I'm not ever going to take off points because there's too much going on. Use this as a way to play around and experiment with things. But just know that when you're using them in a professional setting, you may want to tone it down a little bit. And then also when they talked about setting up the transitions to happen automatically, if this is not your first semester and you have been on campus, think about those TVs that are hanging up in the hallways. Most likely it's PowerPoint being done to move through each of those different screens on there. You've noticed that there's not somebody there clicking and telling it to go to the next slide. It just happens automatically. And a very easy way to set that up is to make a PowerPoint presentation with the 5, we'll call them posters that you want to be displayed. Use that transition to automatically advance every, 45 seconds. Put it into presentation mode, walk away, and it's going to work all on its own. So let's take a quick practice on that using number 3. And we will take a break after number 4. I know this is not the most fun. So we're going to do number 3 now. We'll do one more video in practice, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll finish up. All right. So I've got number 3 open now. And I want to put a push transition. So right here, I'm going to, on the very top on the toolbar, I'm going to click on transitions. And oh, there's push right there immediately available. So I click on that and we see that it pushes up from the bottom. I don't want that. I want it to come in from the side. So all the way over on the right on effect options, click on the arrow and it gives me the choices. And in this case, I want it to come in from the right. And it shows me a preview of how that would work. But that's moving pretty fast. I want to slow it down. So here on duration, I'm going to change that to be 2 seconds or 2.0. I am going to preview that. And now it slides in a little bit slower. And then I also want it to automatically advance. So I don't want to have to click to make it go. I want it to go to the next slide on its own. And I want that to happen after 3 seconds. So the way this field works is minutes, seconds, and then fractions of a second. So right here in this middle part, we want to tell it 3 seconds. And then I'm going to have this one be maybe in the waiting room of my animal rescue up on a TV screen. So I'm going to apply to all. And now if we look, you can see that each slide has a little star next to it now. That means that they all have animations. They all have transitions. And because I applied to all, it's going to be the same transition on all of them. So now if I go ahead and start this slideshow, you'll see it comes in by itself. And then after 3 seconds, automatically goes to the next slide. My hands are right here. I'm not touching anything. It's doing this all on its own. There we go. Great job. So again, now we're doing number 4. Get through this quick little video, practice animating text and objects, and then we'll take a little break and come back and finish up class.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
If you really want to add some excitement to your presentation, try adding some animations. PowerPoint has a wide variety of animated effects that can be applied to text and other objects. In this example, I'm creating a very basic quiz that has a question on each slide. I'd like to add animation to these 2 text boxes and also the man on top of the moon. To get started, select the first object you want to animate. Then go to the Animations tab. Next, click the drop-down arrow to see all the available effects. There are 4 different categories. Entrance, which will happen when the object first appears. Emphasis, which happens while the object is on the slide. Exit, which will cause the object to disappear. And motion paths, which will move the object along a path. I'm going to choose the one called Fly In, which is an entrance effect. For some effects, you'll have different effect options that you can choose from. As you can see, this one lets you change the direction. Let's say I wanted to add a second animation to the text. If we try to select one from the main menu, it's actually going to replace the current effect. Instead, we'll click the command that says Add Animation, and we can apply additional effects to the same object. You can always tell which objects have animations because they'll have little numbers next to them, one for each effect. The thumbnail for the slide will also have a star icon. If you want to preview the effect, just click the Preview command anytime. Now, the key to using animations effectively is moderation. Say we wanted to add an effect to the answer text as well. We don't want anything too bold, like, say, the swivel effect, because it might be distracting to the audience. Instead, I'm just going to set it to slowly fade in, which should really help the answer shine. It's also important to note that not every object needs an animation. This is especially true in more corporate or professional settings. In this case, we're creating a fairly casual presentation, so I'm going to add one more effect to our little astronaut, but leave the rest of the slide alone. At this point, we have several animations to keep track of, so it might be a good time to open the animation pane. The pane appears on the right and lets you do a few different things. You can click and drag the effects to change the order that they play in, and you can use the drop-down arrow to access even more options. By default, animations are set to start when you click the mouse, but I don't want to have to do that for every single one. Instead, we can have some of them start automatically, either with the previous effect or after. I'm going to choose after for everything but the very first animation. That way, they'll all play one after the other as soon as we click the mouse. If you go back to the drop-down arrow, and then choose Effect Options from the menu, you'll get a dialog box where you can really fine-tune the effect. Some of these options will vary depending on the specific animation you're working with. For example, with this animation, we can set the answer to fade in all at once, one word at a time or one letter at a time. I want a little bit more flair, so I'm going to go ahead and choose by letter. If we go to the Timing tab, we can adjust things like the speed of the effect and whether or not it repeats. I'm going to add a tiny bit of delay to give the audience more time to think of the answer. And that looks perfect. Now I'm going to play the entire slideshow so we can see the finished product. We'll just click the mouse to trigger the first effect, which triggers the next one automatically, and then the next one. I really like the way the answer animation turned out, so I'd like to use the same one on the other question slides. Luckily, we don't have to go through all the steps again. We can just copy and paste the effect from one object to another. First, select the object whose animation you want to copy. Then click the command that says Animation Painter. Next, click whatever object you want to add the effect to, and now it fades in exactly the same way. We're well on our way to creating a fun practice quiz. With just a few animations, you can turn a simple slideshow into something interesting and engaging.
All right, let's go ahead and practice some of these animations. So now we are on number 4, animation practice. And we are going to go to slide 2. Oh, sorry. I'm having fun because I'm using PowerPoint to practice PowerPoint, and it makes things a little interesting for me if I click in the wrong spot. All right, so now we're on number 2, and we're going to be working with the answer Neil Armstrong. So I just come in here and I click on it, and you can tell that this is now selected, and I want to add a pulse animation. So up here on the toolbar, I'm going to click on animations. I have all of my choices and pulse is right there. So I click on pulse. There we go. And I also want it to have it wipe in from the left. So remember, if I were to go here, expand this out, and then click on wipe, that would replace my pulse. I want to have both. So instead, while I still have this selected, I'm going to click on add animation. I'm going to add a wipe, but I want it to wipe in from the left. So while wipe is still selected, come over here to effect options, and now it gives me the choices. So by default, it comes in from the bottom. Instead, I want it to happen from the left, so it looks like the word is being typed out. So I'll click on from left, and it gives me a quick little preview. So let's take a look at that real quick now. That doesn't look quite right. I actually want it to wipe in first and then do the pulse. So when I have this selected, I'm actually going to open up the animation pane now, and that gives me the ability to control things a little more. So I am going to change the order by clicking on the one that's for the emphasis and dragging it to the bottom. And now we can see that first it's going to do the wipe, and then it's going to do the pulse. But I actually want that to happen automatically, right? I don't want to have to click once to make it swipe in and another time to make it pulse. So what I need to do is change the start option on this second one to be after previous. So that way I click one time and it will swipe in. Once it's done swiping, it will then pulse. And I really think I like how that's all going to look. So with this one selected, I'm going to use the animation painter to have the same thing happen on slide 3 about Mercury. There we go. So now let's take a look at our presentation and see how it looks. So when I come to this slide, it's asking the question, click once, answer swipes in from the left and does a pulse. Same thing on this second slide. Ooh, all kinds of stuff happening. But now I want my answer to swipe in and pulse. I actually think that this one was a little bit too busy, had too much going on. So when I click on this one for what planet is closest to the sun, over here on the animation pane, it shows me that these two are the ones that happen on that question part of the text. So if I right-click, go to remove, or with them selected, push the delete button, those two can go away because I think there was just too much going on with that slide. Now when I come back to that slide, we still get our little fun animation with the planet flying in, and we have our answer, but we don't also have all those effects on the question. just tone it down a little bit. So, getting right, that is how we ended up having it working. Awesome job. Let's go ahead and take a little break now. We've been going for a bit over an hour. I'm going to pause the recording. It is 1:14 now. We will start back again at 1:30. So go walk a little bit, stretch out, get something to drink. 15-minute break, back at 1:30 to start again.
Sounds good.
Back on. All right, we are back, and we are now working with example number 4, which is presenting your slideshow. So we spent a bit of time getting started on how do you build your slideshow, put a theme on there, get some animations. Now that you're done, what I'm doing right now, how do you get into presentation mode, maybe do some fancy things like drawing on the slide? How does this all work?
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
There comes a time with every presentation when you have to actually deliver it to an audience. Luckily, PowerPoint comes with several different tools that can help you give a smooth, professional-looking presentation. When you're ready, there are many ways to start playing your presentation. For example, using the command on the Quick Access toolbar, the button at the bottom of the window, or the options on the Slideshow tab. In this example, we're going to click the button here, which will take us to the first slide in the presentation. Alternatively, you could press the F5 key on your keyboard to do the same thing. To go to the next slide, you can click your mouse or press the spacebar on your keyboard. You can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard to go backwards or forwards. You can also use the menu in the bottom left corner that appears only when you move your mouse. This gives you easy access to navigation buttons and also some other options that can help during your presentation. Have you ever wanted to access something else while you were in the middle of a presentation, for example? Maybe a website or a file in another program. All you have to do is click Screen, then choose Show Taskbar. Now you can access the File Explorer, your web browser, and anything else that you have pinned to your taskbar. When you're ready to exit the program, all you have to do is close or minimize the window, and you'll be taken straight back to the full screen presentation. Getting back to the menu, another tool I use pretty often is Show All Slides. Just click the button here. This displays a thumbnail version of each slide in your presentation, so you can easily skip ahead or go back. You can access the same feature by right-clicking anywhere on the screen, then choosing See All Slides. Now would be a good time to practice using some of the drawing tools, which can help to call attention to specific things in your presentation. Just open the menu here, and you can turn your cursor into a pen, a highlighter, or even a laser pointer. First, select the tool you want, then click and drag to draw anywhere on the screen. This makes it easy to point out the most successful fundraiser, for example, and also the least successful. Drawing with your mouse can be a little tricky, so you might want to try the feature out before you use it in front of an audience. To erase any markings, open the menu again and choose one of these options. When you're done, you can switch back to the regular mouse pointer by deselecting the current tool. I think I'm ready to wrap this up, so I'm going to exit the slideshow now and go back to PowerPoint. To do this, just press Escape on your keyboard, or navigate past the final slide in your presentation, or go to the slide options menu and choose End Show. Before we leave, PowerPoint will ask if we want to keep the ink markings we just made. I'm going to keep them for now, which means that they stay on the slide, but we can delete them at any time. Just select the mark, then press Delete or Backspace on your keyboard. What if you're going to be using a second display to give your presentation, like a projector or a separate monitor? There's actually a really cool feature called Presenter View that can give you extra help behind the scenes.
And presenter view is what I do when I'm running class. So what you can't see right now is on my second screen, I have this view, which is showing me all of the tools. It shows me the current slide I'm on, how much time has passed, what the actual time is, the slide coming up next, and any notes that I have as I'm going. Right, so for this one, I put a note in to say, hey, ask the students to follow along and check out the menus as this is playing. I'm actually, since I have the video paused, I'm going to say this one to erase all ink on the slide.
Here's how it works.
And now that's gone.
First, start your presentation as usual. Then go to the Slide Options menu. Next, choose Show Presenter View, and you'll be taken to a special set of tools that only you can see. The audience will just see the presentation as normal. The layout is pretty different compared to normal presentation mode, but if you look closely, you'll find a lot of familiar features. For example, here are most of the options that we discussed earlier, including the pen tool, the Show All Slides button, and also arrows for navigation. There's even a place to keep track of the time, preview the upcoming slide, and reference any notes that you've added, all of which can come in really handy. When you're done, go ahead and click the button that says End Slideshow. There's just one more thing I'd like to show you that can help with your presentation, depending on what you need. Make sure that you're on the Slideshow tab, then click Set Up Slideshow. And you can access settings that control how your presentation is played. For instance, if you ever need your slideshow to run on a loop, maybe at a kiosk or a trade show booth, there's an option for that here. You can also control which slides are included in the presentation, whether they advance manually or automatically, and much more. Now you know how to present your slideshow in PowerPoint. With a little practice, and with so many extra tools, you'll be a better presenter in no time.
All right. So yeah, I see the question in the chat box. When I first made all of these presentations for class, each one probably took me somewhere between 1 to 2 hours to make. And most of that is because I have all of these videos embedded. It's not just plain text, but I do have a theme that I use for all of these PowerPoints. So let's take a look at the one from Module 1, right? The very first welcome to class. So when we're looking at this, you can see on this first one, we have our theme, welcome to class. I put the time when it's going to start, and there's no notes here because that's just the first slide. As we're working through, so here is a really good example of the presentation being shown to you is just welcome to CS 105. Why do I need this class? Couple really small bullet points. Down here, I have a note to myself that if I put all of that text on the screen, you would completely be lost. There'd be way too much going on. Later, honey, okay? The joys of working from home. So instead of putting all of this text up on the slide, I put it down here as a note to make sure that I get that point across of whatever job you have, you're going to be using technology. That's the answer to this question, but I didn't put that in the PowerPoint. All right, so that's the way I do things. And again, it's just a very simple theme because I don't want this to be too exciting and have the PowerPoint draw attention. I want it there just as a tool to drive the conversation. All right, back here now from our challenges. I'm going to open up number 5, presenting practice. And this wants us to go to setup slideshow. So first thing we do, now we're talking about presenting. So we want to be on the slideshow tab. Click on setup slideshow. And what I want to do here is change the pen color because the default pen is red. And on this orange background, that's going to be pretty hard to see. So let's change it maybe to a purple instead. That should stand out a little bit better. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to launch this PowerPoint now. And because I have 2 screens, presenter mode comes on my second screen that's not being shared with you. But I'm going to bring it over, make my way over to slide 8. And I'm going to do the same thing that we saw in the video of I want to put some drawings on these fundraising results. So I'm going to come here and click on pen. And I think we have a problem here of this walkathon did not make a lot of money. So I'm going to highlight that with the pen that we changed to be purple. And there it is in the main presentation mode. And that is all that we needed to see on that slideshow. So I'm going to bring that one out of presentation mode. I don't need to keep my annotations. And now I can close that one out altogether. And we can continue on in my main PowerPoint that we are working on right now. So ends up looking a little bit something like that. Next thing we're going to look at is inserting audio into your presentation. Maybe instead of me doing these classes live with you, I wanted to pre-record it one day and put my narration over the slides. The way that I share class recordings with you is to upload a video of my screen share because that shows everything happening on my screen. If I was purely in PowerPoint, instead of uploading the screen share, I could upload a recording, I could upload the PowerPoint file itself, and inside of the PowerPoint file, I could insert an audio clip or even record myself narrating over it and have that be all in one file. So let's take a look at how that works.
Good.
And this will be following along with number 6.
Little Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
I'm working on a presentation that people are going to be watching on their own as part of a training program. I want it to be as interesting as possible, so I think I'm going to add some audio to spice it up a little. Start by going to the Insert tab, where you'll find the audio command on the far right of the ribbon. Here you can insert audio from a file, or you can record your own. For this first slide, I want to add some intro music that I already have saved to my computer. So I'm going to choose Audio on my PC, and a dialog box will appear. PowerPoint is compatible with several different audio formats, including MP3, WAV, and more. All you have to do is select the file you want, then click the Insert button. You can easily move the audio if you need to. Then click the Play button to preview it. To jump to a different part of the song, just click anywhere on the timeline. Next, we're going to take a look at ways to add narration by recording your own audio. You just need a microphone, one that's either built into your computer or the kind that plugs in separately. Again, go to the Audio command on the Insert tab. But this time, choose Record Audio from the menu, and a little dialog box will appear. When you're ready, click the button with the red dot to start recording, then click this one to stop. I'm just going to record a short intro for the slide. But I already know how to use the internet. Okay, so I've recorded my audio. Now we can click the play button to preview it. But I already know how to use the internet. When you're happy with the results, you can give the file a name, then click OK, and it'll be added to your slide. Now that we've added a couple different types of audio, I thought we'd take a look at some of the options on the Playback tab. This is where you can change the way your audio works when you play it during your presentation. You can even do some simple editing. Say you only want to use part of the clip, for example, not the entire thing. You can easily create an excerpt using the Trim Audio command. Just look for the little green and red markers in the dialog box. You can click and drag these to change the start and end times. I'm going to leave the beginning the way it is in this example, but end the song after only a few seconds or so. When you're done, click OK, and the clip will be trimmed. You can also set your audio to fade in and fade out if you feel it starts or stops too abruptly. Just look to the options in the editing group. I like the way this song starts, so I'm not going to add a fade in, but I will add a fade out of, let's say, 3 seconds. We'll take a look at what this sounds like later. If you want to be able to jump to a specific part of the audio during your presentation, you can add a bookmark. All you have to do is click the timeline to mark the point you want to use. Next, click the Add Bookmark command up here on the ribbon, and a little circle will appear. Now you can easily jump to this spot anytime during your presentation. When we play this in slideshow view, we will have to click the audio controls to make the music play. I'd rather have it start automatically though, since it is the intro music. We can change this using the settings in the Audio Options group. Just click the drop-down arrow next to Start, then choose Automatically from the menu. You can also hide the audio icon during your presentation, set the audio to loop until you stop it manually, and more. Finally, I think I'd like to make some changes to the appearance of the audio icon. We can do that by switching over to the Format tab. These are basically all the same options you get when you insert a picture in PowerPoint. In fact, you can even change the audio icon to a picture of your own, instead of using the default speaker icon. To get started, click the Change Picture command. You can choose an image from any of the usual sources, including files saved to your computer and a Bing image search. I bet we can find a simple music note somewhere online. There we go. This one looks good. You can even adjust the image using the usual commands. In this example, I'm going to change the color so it blends in a little better with the slide. So I think my audio is finished. Why don't we take a look at the final product in full slideshow view? Now you know how to add and also edit audio in PowerPoint, including music, sound effects, and even your own narration.
All right. Let's practice that one real quick. So you'll see in this PowerPoint challenges folder, there's the number 6 PowerPoint and then also number 6 MP3 file. We're going to need that MP3 file to insert into number 6. So I'll pop this one open and bring it over here. All right, so now what I want to do is come to slide 3. And on here, I want to insert that audio file. So I'm going to come to the Insert tab. Whoa. Sorry, my mouse is freaking out on me. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to come to the Insert tab. And this time, what I want to insert is audio. So I'm going to click on that. And then I can record a little clip of myself talking. Hello, I really like to hear myself talk. I can play that back. Hello, I really like to hear myself talk. But I don't want to use that. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to throw that away because what I want to do here is insert audio that I already have, that MP3 file. So wherever you have everything saved, for me, it's all the way down here. And here's that MP3 file that's in the same folder with all the other PowerPoint challenges. Go there, click on Insert, and it puts it there with this default icon. Hit play. Get that awesome elevator music. Let's finish this up here, right? So we're going to make it start at 15 seconds and end at 55. And then we're going to have it fade in and fade out. Then we want it to start automatic and play the slides. And then finally, we're going to change that icon. So first thing we want to do is trim the audio because this is a 3-minute song. We don't want that whole song. So I'm going to come here. I'm on my, when I click on this icon, it changes the toolbar and it gives me this playback toolbar. I'm going to click on trim audio and then I can use the sliders or I can just type it right in. So I want to say I want this to start at 15 seconds and I want it to end at 55 seconds. Again, just like before, the breakout is minutes, seconds, and fractions of a second. So now you can see the green is where it starts, the red is where it ends. This part in the middle is the clip that we will keep. The rest of it is not going to play. So I'm going to click OK there. And then remember, I wanted it to fade in and fade out. I'm going to have it fade in for 2 seconds and fade out for 8 seconds. So here we have seconds and fractions of a second. So I want a fade in for 2 and a fade out for 8. Next thing I want to do is have it start automatically so I don't have to do an extra click. And then I'm going to tell it to play across the slides. So that way when I change from this slide to the next slide, it will keep on playing. So for the start, instead of when clicked on, change it to automatic. And then I want it to continue from one slide to the next. So I'll click on this checkbox for play across slides. Then the last thing I want to do is change this picture. So I'll switch here to audio format. Come here to change picture. And I want to look for ones online. It's going to give me all of these different choices. And I'm just going to type in music note. Now you'll notice we have things about copyright. It says you're responsible for respecting each other's rights, including copyright. So click here to learn more, but then notice we have this checkbox of Creative Commons only. And remember from last week, Creative Commons means that as long as you're using it for certain purposes, one of them being education, it's okay to do it. Essentially, as long as you're not making money off of it, if it has a Creative Commons license, you're in the clear to use it. In this case, I want something a little bit small, so I'll go with this second one. Click on Insert, and it changes it from that default picture to this cooler looking picture. Sorry, folks. So now, when I pop this one into presentation mode, when I get to slide 3, the music fades in, plays on its own. I come to the next slide, the music is still playing. It's gonna go and now start to fade itself out because I'm having a hard time talking over this music. 15 seconds is a really long time when you have to fill it with words. Wait for this to fade itself out. I can keep changing slides. And I just remembered that I set it for 55 seconds, not 15 seconds. So I'm not going to make you listen to me yell over the music for an entire minute. Close this one out because we're done with number 6. Oh boy. So I made a mistake there, lost my slide, but I want to get back to where I was, and there we go. So now, that was inserting some kind of audio. Now let's do that second scenario of if I wanted to, instead of uploading a screen share, just upload a PowerPoint, how would I go about putting my voice inside of the PowerPoint so that way you only have to download one file that has everything?
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Everyone has their own way of preparing for a presentation. What do you plan to say? How long will the presentation last? The first thing I do when I'm ready to rehearse is go to the Slideshow tab. Not to run a slideshow, but to work on my timing using the Rehearse Timings command. This mode lets you practice your presentation while recording the amount of time it takes to deliver each slide. See the little toolbar in the upper left corner? These timings can actually be used to run your presentation automatically, so you can focus on your talking points instead of advancing the slides. While in rehearsal mode, just click the Next button to move to the next slide, or use the right arrow key on your keyboard. If you need more than one try to get a timing right, you can take a break using the Pause button, and then resume the recording when you're ready. To re-record the timing on the current slide, just click the Repeat button, and it'll reset the clock. Once again, click Resume when you're ready to start recording again. Let's skip ahead to the end of the slideshow. Imagine I've just spent this time practicing my entire presentation. To return to PowerPoint, I'm going to press Escape on my keyboard, and then Yes to save the timings from this rehearsal. To view your timings, navigate to Slide Sorter View, and if we zoom in, you can see them listed under each slide. Now when I give my presentation, I can let the slides run automatically without having to advance them myself. That gives me an idea. Why don't we start over, and this time make a copy of the presentation that people can view on their own, with slide timings and narration. It's possible with the Record Slideshow feature. All you need is a microphone for your computer. Open the menu here, and you can record from your current slide or from the beginning if you're just getting started. That's what we're going to choose. Check what you want to include. For me, timings and narration because I do have a mic. Then click Start Recording and be ready to perform your presentation as soon as it begins. Make sure to speak clearly into the mic if you're recording narration. When you're ready to move to the next slide, click Next or use the arrow key just like before. The mouse is designed to be invisible in the final recording, so if you want to point something out, you'll need to do it using something the viewer can see, the laser pointer. Just hold Control on your keyboard, then click and hold your mouse anywhere on the slide. When you're finished, press the Escape key. Now my timings and narration are part of the presentation. Any slide that has narration will be marked with a tiny speaker icon in the bottom right corner. If you change your mind and want to remove any timings or narration, just open the Record Slideshow menu, then mouse over the Clear option. You can erase timings and narration from the current slide or all slides. I'm going to give this another go when I have all my talking points together, but I'm not too worried. With the ability to rehearse and record, I know I'll be ready to deliver my presentation, whether it's to a live audience or to the viewer's personal computer.
So that's pretty useful. I gave the use case of recording it for later watching. It would make sense for this class, or if you're doing a training where you work, or maybe you have a team meeting that you want people to go back and be able to see it again. But also a really good point from that video was if you're not very strong at public speaking and you want to get your confidence up before you do it for real, that's a great tool where you can record it just as a test run for yourself and see how long it takes you to run through everything and make sure that you're hitting all the points you want to hit. So there's a few different ways to do it. Just need to, I wanted to make sure you see them. And then obviously, as you're using this going forward, pick the one that works best with what your goal is. So let's do our last challenge for the day. We're going to go in there, do a little bit of practicing narration, and then play it back. So back here, number 7. I'm going to bring this one over here, come to slideshow, and I'm going to record from the beginning. So just doing a quick test here to record all of my narrations. Then I come to my next slide, talk a little bit about, I already know what to do. No, you don't, and I'm going to tell you why you don't know it. Continue talking, blah, 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 blah. Then when I'm done, I press the escape key. And I can come back to the beginning, open up my presentation, and I did something wrong because it should be playing back my audio and advancing on its own. That may be because I have two PowerPoints going, and I am not going to make you watch my troubleshooting process. So again, go back, review, and try it out for yourself. And
Now they always say congratulations. We're so vacation.
so thank you so much. I know that was a long day of death by PowerPoint. You all did an awesome job. And that last slide is actually probably one of my favorite slides, just because it shows the way you can personalize PowerPoint. And, you know, if we're in the classroom, I know I would be getting all kinds of terrible looks from you right now. But what I did was I embedded this, it's a GIF, right? Just a looping image. And then I actually went out and grabbed the clip. And if we look on the playback, you can see I'm not going to make you listen to that whole song. I just clipped out the chorus and I have it fade in and fade out. So that one slide right there kind of puts together a whole bunch of things that we saw throughout today. So now let's take a look at what you need to be doing. So again, we're back here in our course. This is actually not the right one. We want the hybrid course. So on the home page, we have our due dates. Remember now, first week, I gave you a couple extra days because the first week is always weird. But now, going forward, assignments are always due on a Tuesday. So the idea here is this is a hybrid class. Do the reading ahead of time, be generally comfortable with it. On Saturday, we do a review, and then the following Tuesday, your assignments are due. This week, we have one assignment, which is the initial e-portfolio. So I'm going to come over here to modules, and we are on module 3. So I have these PowerPoints structured to pull out the highlights from each module. I don't cover everything that's in here. You need to go back through Canvas and also read all of these pages. Make sure, right, these are the case studies, but I didn't open up any of these links. We didn't talk about any of this top part. Make sure you're taking advantage of everything this class has to offer. Here are the challenges that we were doing. And as you scroll through here, these are the exact same videos that I had in the PowerPoint. So it's whatever is the best way for you to get that content. So we did the basics of the slides. Then we talked about transitions and animations. Then we got into doing the presentation, embedding the audio, recording the presentation. And now, with all of that knowledge, your assignment for this week is to do your initial e-portfolio. So think about your career interest. Again, if you don't have one, just make something up for the class. If you can't make something up for the class, talk to me and we'll figure something out. You may want to take a look at this typology test, you know, if we want to do some introspection. But now, thinking about the actual assignment and what I want to see. First thing is you have this template right here to download and use. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it downloads this PowerPoint template. Open that up when it's done. And you can see this is very plain Jane. you have to plug in all of your own stuff. So obviously, the name is going to be your name. It has a placeholder for future career, what experience you have now. And then I also want you to reflect back on some of the assignments that we've already done, right? So, or topics that we've talked about. What did you learn here? And then so far, what's your favorite assignment that we've done? And what's your least favorite thing that we've done? So this is just as of right now, a couple weeks into class. We'll go back and do this again at the end of class to see how far you've gotten. So the template is there, but what do I want you to do with it? First thing is it has to be school appropriate. Now, I'm pretty lenient, but I think we all know where the lines are. Don't cross them. So when you're thinking about the career, first thing I want is a little profile about you, right? What's your background? What's your experience? What's your education? Then tell me about the career. What are the trends? What's the growth? What's the salary look like? What skills do you need? Physical, mental, emotional demands? What kind of education do you need? All of these things right here. So that's one part, is researching your career. Second part is showing me that you know how to use PowerPoint. So you have to have a new theme. You can't just turn it back into me plain. I want to see from the design tab, pick whatever theme that you like, right? It's not going to bother me which theme you pick, but I do want to see you add some flavor to it. Next thing is to embed an image of some kind. I want to see a slide transition. Slide transition, remember, is changing from one slide to the next. And then I also want to see an animation. So that is an element inside of a slide. That could be a picture bouncing in, or that could be a text box swiping left, something like that. I also want you to put notes in. So you can see that on this first one, the note is already there. But here, when you're talking about your career, right, my career is going to be a community college instructor. And then I'm going to put a note down here. Now, the note can be whatever you want, but just imagine if I was going to be mean to you and make you get on screen share and present this to the class. What would you want to make sure you're talking about on this slide? So I would put a note down here saying, I have a passion for helping others, right? That's just going to remind me of saying, okay, I do the technology stuff because I'm good at it. I do teaching at the community college because I like it. I really, I know the technology stuff. That's great. I think my better way for me to impact society is to come here, teach to you, and help you find what it is that you want to do next. So this little note down here is going to help me remember to talk about that. When you're doing your research on the salary, you're going to find that somewhere. So make sure you cite that appropriately. You can put that on each slide, or you can do one at the end. But I do want to see whatever you know how to do from previous classes, a MLA or APA citation. Don't let it go too long, and then make sure that your spelling and grammar are good. So again, to run through that assignment, first thing you do is download it, make all the changes that we just talked about of a style, adding things in, make it about you. Don't worry about number 3. I'm not going to make you present, but just be aware of, if you were going to present, what you would need to do within PowerPoint to be ready for that. And then do have fun. This is a nice way to kind of explore yourself, your goals, and how you use PowerPoint. And then we do have the grading criteria here. These first few are kind of high level of just, do you know how to use Office? Are you covering all of these different things? Worry about this bottom half here. So, did you give me career information? Did you put a theme on it? Did you put in the picture that I told you? Did you put a transition? Did you put an animation? How's your grammar? Where's your APA or MLA? Did you reflect on all of the assignments? And then presentation here just means overall look, right? Does it look pleasing to the eye? So that is what you need to have done by Tuesday. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And recording is off. It is